everyone I speak to knows that cash flow is the lifeblood of any business, and that how well you sell and your ability to be able to make sales will directly impact the success or failure of your business. Hi, I'm Patrick Woodcraft, co-founder of Campaign Mastery Academy, here to help you really nail this sales thing. Let's see if you can relate to this. You believe in the work that you're doing. It's important. You're good at it. Your heart's in the right place, and you want to make a difference. You really care for your clients too. They matter to you. And you know that to be able to continue serving them long term at the highest level, your business needs strong, positive cash flow and profitability to be able to be a sustainable, profitable commercial success. And of course, you deserve to be able to draw a decent personal income and sustenance to support your lifestyle too. Sounds good so far, right? Here's the thing. Your business isn't growing as fast as it could, and you're not having the positive impact you'd like because you and your team just aren't selling effectively enough. You see, one of the biggest problems that our clients and business owners in general are facing, they ask me all the time, they say, Patrick, I'm not a professional salesman, so how can I bring in more good people and A-grade clients into my business in a way that they're comfortable with and that I'm comfortable with too? It's a good question, right? Now what they really need to understand is the real question. How do you sell from the heart without being all, like slippery and slimy and salesy? So that's what we're going to talk about. Now what we won't be talking about is cold calling, objection handling, closing people, any of those old school high pressure sales ploys. We're simply going to map out the most efficient, effective ways to facilitate really like a beautiful, open-hearted conversation with someone that you care about and who you know you can really help. And we'll be doing that in a way that's natural and it's comfortable and it's easy, it's effortless for you and for them. This is not about trying to sell everyone either. The whole point is to have your ideal A-grade clients feel great about joining you and paying you without feeling pressured. Now the other part of that is you want to elegantly release the prospects who you aren't set up to serve or who they're not so much fun to work with, the ones I mean. And you can redirect them to someone who's better positioned to take care of them. And there's so many reasons why you want to do that when it's appropriate. So how do we do this? How do we sell from the heart without being salesy? Well, there's three main points we need to cover. Firstly, you need to understand the old school sales ploys and why they're the exact reverse of what actually happens in the real world of natural human interaction, right? Second is to consider the pros and cons of the different sales settings and how to select the most appropriate setting for your particular sales conversation. And third, when you do get into a sales conversation, what do you actually say? How do you keep the conversation on point, heading in the right direction? So we'll be looking at the key distinctions between your typical transactional sales, the old school sales model, versus what I teach, transformational sales. But first, how about a little story? So picture this. You've just sat down for dinner and the phone rings, right? And you think to yourself, well, could be mum, could be the kids, right? Better get it. So you go and answer the phone, and it's annoying from Annoyance Corp. Bop, 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 and on he goes, and on and on and on with his script. And how are you today? And he doesn't even wait to hear your answer, and just straight on to the next line of his script. And it's awful, right? Your dinner's getting cold, and you're trying to get rid of this guy on the phone. And like a client said to me recently, she said, Pat, I hate those calls. Not I mean they're annoying, they waste my time, I didn't invite them, absolutely. But the reason I really hate them is because they turn me into someone I don't like to be. Because I've got to be rude just to get rid of them, right? You know what I'm talking about. So this is really, we're not going to be annoying from Annoyingsville. You're not going to be boring from Boringsville. These are not people that you want to be. They're not roles that you want to play. And really it's like, when you think about it, what they're trying to do is start a relationship with you. By being annoying? Like what kind of it's a professional relationship, a business relationship, but what kind of a relationship is going to want to start out that way? How's that relationship going to develop, right? If they're annoying at the start, they're going to be annoying, right? No one enjoys that. You're definitely not going to do that to your people, the people that you care about. It's no way to start a relationship. In his blog, Seth Godin does this really cool thing. It's all about permission marketing, right? And he says, if the people you're contacting would miss you if you didn't show up, then you have permission. So what he's saying is, if they wouldn't miss you, you don't even have permission to be talking to them in the first place. Now, obviously, he's talking mainly to the marketers and the spammers, right? And then they're saying, well, how can I start my business if I don't spam people? And instead of saying, what kind of way is that to start a relationship, right? And I think it's absolutely, it's equally, if not more applicable to cold calling. If the people you're missing would, if the people you're talking to would miss you if you don't show up, then you have permission. If you don't have that kind of permission, if they're not expecting your call, if they're not expecting your conversation, if they're not actually showing up to hear from you, you do not have permission to be talking to them. How we get that permission is a whole other conversation for another day. You can talk to John Abbott about permission marketing and audience awakening. However, for the purpose of this call, I'm going to presume that you have permission and you're talking to people who want to hear about your product and service, okay? So, 3 things we need to cover. First, the old school sales ploys and why they're the exact reverse of what actually happens in the real world of natural human interaction. So again, let's start with a story. Every year, there's Roy Morgan, Gallup poll, Reader's Digest, all these guys do their big surveys every year of the most trusted professions, the most trusted career people in our community, right? So they run these tests, and every year, the most trusted ones, it's the same people. It's nurses and primary schools teachers and I think it's chemists or pharmacists, right? But anyway, they're the people that in society we trust the most. And every year, at the bottom of the list, it's the same handful down there too, right? Politicians, lobbyists, and salesmen. And it's with good reason too, right? Because everyone's had an experience from Boringsville or annoying from Annoyance Corp, and it's awful. Like we don't, they're contacting us when we didn't invite that. They've got an agenda. They've got they're up to something. They're being sneaky. They're using these ninja techniques to try and twist our arm into doing something that we had no intention of doing in the first place. It's not okay, right? It's not okay. And so what I want to do now is have a look at the kind of some of the ploys and the tactics, or the basic, we're not going to get into all the different tactics that you use, but we're going to have a look at the basic philosophy that drives all those tactics. Because if you can understand that and switch it around in your head and get it in the right way so that it reflects natural human interaction, then all that other stuff can just go away. You can let go of all that and we can get on with actually having beautiful conversations. So why is it that salesmen are always on the bottom of the list of the most trusted professions? Well, here's why. Think back to the early 90s. Remember the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, Al Pacino and Alec Baldwin, and he's going, A, B, C, A always, B, B, C closing, always be closing. Remember that scene? If not, you can find it on YouTube. It's a classic. Just look for Alec Baldwin, Glengarry Glen Ross sales motivation scene or whatever it is. And then he goes on to explain the AIDA model. A-I-D-A. He says A, attention. You've got to grab the prospect's attention. I, interest. Get them interested in what you're going to talk about. D, decision. Have you made your decision for Christ? A, action. It's buy or walk, right? What he's saying. So when salespeople look at this and think that's the way to do it, it's exactly the opposite of what actually happens in natural human interactions. When you're talking to your friend, you're not trying to grab their attention and get them interested in what you want to talk about. When you really care about someone, you want to show them that they have your attention and that you're interested in what they want to talk about, right? In sales, in a sales scenario, when you're having a sales conversation with someone, you're trying to grab their attention. You think they don't know what you're up to, but if you genuinely give them your attention and you're genuinely interested in what they want to talk about, right? You think they don't know, they don't respond to that as well, of course, right? So this is natural human interaction. The D is for decision, so it's not like I'm trying to get you to make a decision to buy my thing. It's like I've already made a decision to support you, to serve you, to serve you at the highest level and do what I can to help you on your journey. And action, I'm not looking for you to take some action to buy my thing. I'm taking action and actually contacting you and giving you this opportunity to transform this area of your life or whatever it is that you're giving them an opportunity to do. With me? Okay, the second thing I need to talk to you about today is the pros and cons of the different types of sales settings and how to select the most appropriate setting for your particular sales conversation and in particular scenario. So first what we're going to do is have a look at all the common sales settings that are available, and then we're going to have a look at how we're going to measure each of those to determine which one's going to be the best for you to use in any particular setting. So let's have a look at the common sales settings. Number one is an online cart, right? Have you ever been to a website and it's got a big button that says click here to buy now? Maybe you've got a website with a big button that says click here to buy now. That is part of a sales conversation, right? Now, no one's actually maybe saying that conversation, maybe you're just reading it on the screen, but there's a sale about to happen or not, right? And how well that happens. So the second one is you could run an online event, like a webinar or some kind of an online show. And you could have some sort of a call to action and get people to opt in or to buy your product or service from an event. Could do that. The third one that's popular would be like a live event. So you've got an online event, which is a webinar, or you've got a live event, which is seminars or workshops. Right? This is where you've got a guy on stage and he's speaking to everyone and everyone's very excited and he says, run to the back of the room and fill in the form and buy my thing. Right? That's a sales setting, that's a setting where sales can occur. And the fourth one is, what's the fourth one? Live appointments. So let's do coffee, let's do lunch. You know, I'll come to you and we'll meet at the cafe and we'll have a conversation, and if this is right for you, you can buy my thing. Right? Fantastic. Or the fifth one of my favorites, is actually a phone appointment, which is I'll call you at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, look out for my call. Alright, so let's have a look now at the three different measures that we're going to use, how you're going to determine which one of those is going to be most appropriate or most effective for each part of any specific sales campaign that you're running in your business. So for the measurement of that, I look at the three E's: efficiency, economy, and ease. So efficiency is the number, it's how many you can complete on in a day. Effectiveness is what's the reasonable anticipated conversion ratio from prospect to sale. So how effective is that particular setting for your outcome? And ease, basically look in terms of how hard or easy is it to actually create that setting in terms of time, money, energy, resources, all the different things that you're going to need to set it up. So let's have a look at each of these common sales settings and rate them against the three E's, and so that you can see which is going to be most appropriate or ideal for you to use on any given campaign in your business. So first, the online cart. Click here to buy now. Efficiency. How many people could click here to buy now in a day? And basically, it's unlimited. Right? So for efficiency, is through the roof. The only limiting factor there is like how many people. So assuming you can drive unlimited people to your page without crashing your servers, massive efficiency. When we look at effectiveness, though, conversion ratios compared to conversion rates of other sales settings, it's probably about the lowest of all. So definitely the highest efficiency, lowest effectiveness. Good internet marketers are looking for, on average, 1 to 3% of their list to take action and actually purchase on any particular campaign that they do. So far as conversion, exceedingly low. And then ease, in terms of time, money, energy, resources involved to set it up. You can set up a simple landing page with a shopping cart, and so easily. There's free resources and free tools available to do that, and you can get that done in a day. It's dead simple to do if you know how to do it. If not, you can get someone else to do it, and it's super expensive. So online carts, tick the box for efficiency, absolutely. Tick the box for ease, absolutely. But low effectiveness. So just know you're going to have to drive huge volumes of traffic to get a couple of sales there. Cool. Look at running an online event, like a webinar. So efficiency for an online event. How many people can you have on your webinar? Again, it's almost unlimited, right? Because you've got this massive leverage mechanism of the internet to be able to drive lots and lots of people to a particular thing. Now that's of course presuming that your marketing is good and you actually have the capacity to get people there in the first place, which again is a conversation for John Abbott. We're just looking at the actual sales conversion side of it, right? So if we look at effectiveness of running an online event like a webinar, pretty good conversion, certainly better than the online cart, right? If you're using the webinar to send people to the cart, then you're going to get a far better, typically you'll get a far better conversion rate than if you just send people to a cart straight off an ad. So your effectiveness, can be anywhere, 10% is pretty good for sales conversion off a webinar. Now of course it depends on your industry and your offer and your market and a whole bunch of things, and there are no averages. However, having said that, if you're getting 10% off your webinars, everyone should be pretty happy with that. And ease in terms of time, money, energy, resources to set it up, again, pretty easy for a webinar. So you can there's free online webinar software, there's cheap online webinar software, and you can set that up YouTube are doing things now where you can actually do a live YouTube, you can record the video and it's streaming to YouTube live. Google Hangouts have got things, there's programs like Zoom that we use all the time, they're amazing for that. So lots of different programs out there where you can run online webinars, very low cost, very easily, very simple to do. You can do it from home. Great. So definitely ticks the box for efficiency, ticks the box for ease, and it's not too bad in terms of effectiveness, not as high as some that we're going to look at, but certainly higher than the card on its own. All right, number 3, running a live event. This is seminars, workshops, all that kind of stuff. This is where you've got someone speaking from stage, they're talking to their audience, they're giving them great content, they're inspiring them, they're educating them, and then they're saying, right, run to the back of the room, fill in my form, buy my thing, whatever it is, buy my program, buy my course, come to my big retreat, whatever it is. So for those type of sales, a live event works really, really well. Let's have a look. Efficiency in number of people that you can communicate with in a day and actually can buy in a day. If you've got 10 or 20 people at your small event, then that's great. If you've got 2,000 or 5,000 people at your event, that's amazing. So in terms of efficiency, there's really, there is a limit, but there's almost no limit to the number of people you can have in a room, right? Again, it just all comes down to how good's your marketing and how many people can you actually put in the room. So efficiency is very, very high. It's a high level of leverage again. You can talk to a lot of people at once. Effectiveness, definitely better than a webinar because people are live in the room with you. They get to see you live, they get that connection, that emotion, that energy. And good presenters and speakers from stage. I'm looking around like I've got an audience now. I'm just talking to you, but speaking from stage. Good presenters are looking for anywhere up to a 20% conversion ratio. So from the number of people in the room to the number of people that actually buy, 20% is great. So in terms of effectiveness, we'll just see we're getting better and better every time. In terms of ease of time, money, and resources to set up a live event, forget it, right? You've got venue hire, you've got logistics, you've got people actually getting people to turn up. It's a huge job to get all the logistics of the day organised. So in terms of logistics for running an event, it's massive. It's not an easy thing to do. There's businesses out there that specialise in that, and they do it very well, and it's not an easy job. So efficiency, great. Effectiveness, great. But ease and time, money, energy, resources to set up, it's a big job. So if you're set up to do that, great. If you're not, forget it, right? Get someone else to do it or wait till you're at the level where you've got the resources to be able to do that. It's expensive, it's timely, and it's a huge job to set up. All right, what about live appointments? So this is, let's do coffee, let's do lunch, let's meet up, come to my office, I'll come to your office, whatever it is, but I'm actually going to stand in front of the person, and the sales setting is now them and me standing here having a real conversation, or sitting down having a conversation, sitting down over a meal and having a conversation. How is that in terms of efficiency? This is probably the least efficient of all the possible sales settings you can imagine. Because how many people can you actually sit with one-on-one and have a half hour, 45 minutes, hour and a half, 2 hours if it's going to be a late lunch or a dinner or something. You can't do many of those in a day. If you do half a dozen, that's a big day, especially if you're going to them. By the time you've driven to their home or their office or their cafe, driven across town, found a park, you meet them. Half the time they don't show up anyway, or they're late, so then you're waiting around, and then you're late for the next appointment, and it's just not an efficient model. However, in terms of effectiveness, it's probably the highest conversion ratio. So you're going to speak to far less people, but you can be looking at, if you're well-qualified prospects with a good offer, 60 to 80% conversion ratio is not uncommon in these one-to-one meetings, right? So very, very effective. In terms of ease, time, money, energy, resources to set it up and get it done, kind of 50-50, right? Because it's taking a lot of your time to actually get to the appointment. Now, if they're coming to you and seeing you in your office, we can typically do a few more in a day, provided people show up on time. And it's a little bit easier, but again, you've got your office as your space, whatever it is. But yeah, ease, it's not super easy. Certainly a lot easier than running a live event. If you're just going to meet someone in a cafe, pretty easy. And not as easy as something like a phone conversation or an online cart. They're pretty easier than that. The fifth common sales setting that you want to understand today is phone appointments. This is, look, I'll call you at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, we'll have a conversation, we'll see if this is right for you. Right? In terms of efficiency, it's high. You can call a lot of people in a day. If you block out a whole day for calls, or even a few hours for calls, you can connect with a lot of people, certainly far more than you can have coffee with, right? And not as many as you could have in a live event or an online event. So as far as efficiency, it's good, but it's not through the roof. So in terms of effectiveness, how many, what's your anticipated conversion ratio? For our guys, of every conversation, of every call we make, about half of them will actually get through to and have a good conversation with, and of every conversation we have, about half of those will end up buying something. So it's like 25% of the calls that we make, or 50% of the conversations that we have. So in terms of effectiveness, that's really high. It's a very effective strategy. And in terms of ease, it's probably the easiest of all to do. Everyone's got a phone, right? If you've got someone's phone number, you can call them, have a conversation, and what I'm going to show you is how to do that in just a natural and comfortable way. So there it is, the 5 most common sales settings and 3 E's to measure each one by. So now you'll know which one's going to be most ideal for you to use on any particular campaign in your business. Now there's one more factor that's going to be really important for you to consider when determining what's going to be the most appropriate or ideal sales setting. And this is, who are you talking to? Right? Now it's all very well and good to talk about what's easy for you and what's efficient for you and what's effective for you. What's really important to consider though is your audience, is your market, is your client or your customer, and what's going to work for them. Right? Now obviously that's a big part of this thing, so I didn't want to leave that out. And really this is going to come down to a distinction between, are you dealing with clients or customers? And for that matter, what's the difference? Alright, so let's look at the difference between a client and a customer. Let's look at customers first. Customer is just anyone who buys your stuff. Supermarkets have customers, people coming through all day long buying their stuff. A client, on the other hand, a client is a very special and specific type of relationship. And it actually comes from, if we look at the history of the word, from ancient Rome, where they had this culture where if there was a plebeian is someone who was generally illiterate, but aside from that, they weren't able to take care of themselves in a particular area of their life. So they would come under the clientship of a nobleman or a patrician. Patrician is actually where we get our modern day word for Patrick, which is kind of cool, it's my name. So Patrick, or the patrician, or the nobleman, would say to the plebeian who couldn't take care of himself, you don't need to worry about that area of your life ever again. You're my client now, and it literally meant you are coming under my protection. I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to care for you, and I'm going to handle that area of your life forever, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. Beautiful sentiment, right? So when you think about taking on a new client, hold that, the energy of that word, which is, you're coming under my protection, and this issue, this thing that you're coming to me for, you don't need to worry about that ever again, because I'm going to get that handled for you. So the whole thing about taking on a new client is the immense responsibility of, are you actually up to the task of handling that area of their life? Or if you're going to be taking on clients, you want to be able to say to them with confidence that you don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm going to handle it for you, and actually know that you can actually handle that area of their life. Now the other part to it is, if you're going to handle an area of someone's life for them, you want to make sure that there's someone that you actually care for enough to want to be able to do that for them, right? So there's kind of 2 parts to it. One is, can you do it? And one is, do you want to do it, right? There it is, clients and customers. I hope that's helpful. So this brings us to the third and final point. By now you know about all the old school sales ploys and why they're completely back to front. You know about boring from Boringsville or annoying from Annoyings Corp, and why you need to get permission before you actually engage in a sales conversation with someone. You know the difference between a client and a customer, and you know how to evaluate the sales setting that will be most conducive for your particular sales conversation given any campaign in your business. So this brings us to the third and the final point for me to share with you today, which is, when you do get into a sales conversation, what do you actually say, right? How do you keep the conversation on point, headed in the right direction? Now first we need to understand the key distinctions between, look at the old model, the typical transactional sales, versus what I teach and what we're talking about, which is the new model of transformational sales. So if we look at transactional sales, very simple. Transactional sales is just getting someone to buy your thing, right? It's getting somebody to make a decision to buy your product or service or whatever it is that you're selling in your business. Now contrast that with my definition of transformational sales, which is giving someone an opportunity to transform an area of their life. So let's break this down. Getting someone to make a decision to buy your product or service versus giving someone an opportunity to make a decision to transform an area of their life. Now, both of these involve a decision being made. So let's have a look at that one first. Decision comes from the Latin two words, de and cision. So many of our words as other words just stuck together. De, the first part to this, literally means de. De means in Latin off or away from. And then cision is where we get our modern word incision, which literally means to cut, right? So this word decision means cutting off or away from. Interesting. So you think about it. Right up until the moment when you've actually made a decision, you've got choices, you've got options. I could do this, I could do that, I could do nothing at all, I could do something else. You've got all the choice in the world. The moment you make a true decision, you've literally cut off and away from any other possibility other than the path that you've chosen to walk. And that makes sense. The next part that's interesting about this is the very first word. So in the old model, transactional sales, it's getting someone to make a decision to buy a product or service. In the new model, transformational sales, it's giving someone an opportunity to make a decision to transform their life. So if we look at the very first word in this sentence, getting versus giving, and just feel for yourself the energy of that. Think about transactional sales and the old model of sales is all about getting. You're trying to get the prospect's attention, get them to get interested in what you're talking about, get them to make a decision, get them to take action. Transformational sales is exactly the opposite, as we've already discussed. It's the reverse. It's what actually happens in normal, natural human interactions. It's all about giving. It's selfless. It's generous. It's giving someone an opportunity to make a decision to transform an area of their life. So if you go into this sales conversation with the idea that I'm going to get this prospect and I'm going to get their money and I'm going to get them to do something, I'm going to get them to buy my product or service, straight away that sets up an energy or a vibration. Excuse me. Straight away that sets up an energy or a vibration in the conversation of lack on your part, of neediness, of you're insufficient, you don't have enough, and you're trying to get something, and you're trying to get it from them. You're like a vampire, like sucking on their energy. And it's not attractive. In fact, it's one of the things that's opposite of attractive. Right? Neediness is never attractive. So if instead of this energy of trying to get, you've got this energy of trying to give. You're not trying anything, actually you are giving. And you're giving them a genuine opportunity to make a decision to transform this area of their life. The energy of giving is so much more attractive. And if you think about, the whole game is about flow. So if we think about getting as you're in the river trying to get all the flow of the river for yourself, there's only so much you can get. But if you stop trying to get and you're in the river giving, then it's not even coming from you, it's coming from the river. It's coming from flow, from source. And there's no limit to how much you can give because every time you give, more just flows in to take its place. So the next bit is this idea of an opportunity. So in transformational sales, we're giving our prospects an opportunity to transform an area of their life. So when I look at this word opportunity, and really, if we weren't giving anything in transactional sales, the old model, it would be an obligation. We've got opportunity on one hand, obligation on the other. Now, we'll look at opportunity in a second. It's an amazing word. Let's look at obligation first. Obligation is never your own motivation. It's always external motivation. If you're obliged to do something, it's not, the energy of that word isn't, wow, I really want to do that. It's like, well, I have to do this. It's this should, right? And you really should do this. And when anytime anyone says that to you, it's not your own motivation. It's their motivation compelling you to a course of action, right? So, and this is the whole thing about transactional sales. It's the salesperson's motivation to try and get their prospect to take some course of action. And it's not the prospect's motivation. This is why we get things like objections, buyer's remorse, cancellations, payment plans falling over, all this kind of stuff is because it was never their intention or their motivation to do the thing in the first place. It was always some external motivation. It was a should, it was an obligation. So we definitely want to, while that can seem expedient in the short term, if you've got to give someone a heavy obligation to do something, there's a debt to pay or there's some heavy reason why they want to do that, then that can seem like a quick way to get your outcome or what you want. Really, it's not honouring or respecting that person, that individual, that prospect, that other human being that you have in front of you. So all we want to do in transformational sales is just give someone that opportunity. Right? And we look at the word opportunity. Really, it's just a set of circumstances that make something possible. Right? That's all opportunity means. And it comes from this word opportune. Now, opportune is like it's convenient, it's favourable. And opportune has got a really cool history. When we look at the history of it, it comes from Latin, opportunus, or ob portas was the two original words. And ob means in the direction of, and portas is a port or a harbour. And originally, ob portas was describing a wind driving towards a harbour, or a safe harbour, or a port. Right? So imagine we're sailors. We're out on the high seas and we're having a jolly old time. It's wonderful. The kid up in the crow's nest, he calls out to the captain, he says, "Captain, pirates ahoy!" Now what's the captain to do? We want to save the ship, we want to save the cargo, we want to save the crew, he wants to save his own bacon. So he says to the skipper, "Skipper, where be the winds?" And the skipper would report, "Captain, we have a favourable ob portas. We have a favourable wind driving towards the harbour." Then the captain says, "Well, skipper, there's no time to lose. All hands on deck. Hoist the mainsails, trim the jib. We're going to make the most of this ob portas to save ourselves from this destruction, from certain death. We're going to make the most of this opportune wind. We're going to make the most of this opportunity." Right? And when you think about that as where our language comes from, and it's just wonderful. So anytime we're giving our prospects an ob portas, we're giving them an opportunity. And what it is, it's a strong wind driving them towards that place where they want to be, and it's going to save them from this, this peril that they're facing right now. So if we can honestly look ourselves in the mirror and say, this is an opportunity that will help people to rapidly accelerate to where they want to be, and it's going to save them from certain peril, then that's a genuine opportunity. Now, if this is an opportunity for you, I'm going to make some money out of it, it's not really a good deal for you, then that's not really an opportunity. And I'm going to resort back to trying to give you some external obligation to try and do that. Cool? Cool story? So in transformational sales, we always want to be giving people real opportunities, and we want to avoid external obligations and guilt trips and all these kind of underhanded tactics that people can use to motivate people to do stuff that they want them to do, which may or may not be what the individual wants to do. You with me? Right. Okay, so the next thing we want to cover, this is this idea of, now we're getting into the detail of what to actually say in a sales conversation. And, a lot of people ask me all the time, they say, "Pat, do I really need to use a script?" And, it's kind of interesting. I've kind of come full circle on this. I used to be of the position where, you don't need to use a script at all. If you'd rather sound like you don't have a clue what you're talking about, that's fine. Don't use a script, right? And obviously, my point was, use a script, otherwise you're going to sound like you don't know what you're talking about. And then, over the years I've been working with business owners and, really switched on operators who really do know what they're talking about. They've got decades of life experience, and they understand their content, their program, their process, at a very deep level, and they can talk about it with absolute authority. So then, when we try and write scripts for people like that, it just slows them down. They're clunky, they're getting in the way. Even the best written script, we've found it really not working well for them because they know what they're talking about, and they're sensing, what needs to come up in the moment. They've got a whole bunch of great stories to illustrate certain points. They know what questions to ask to get people to really open up and share, whatever it is that they need to get, whatever breakthroughs they need to get them to actually want to take that opportunity. So then I went full circle and went, well, let's not use scripts at all. And then what I found was people were just talking and having great conversations, but they stopped converting. They weren't making sales anymore. And I went, oh, this is no good either. What's the go? So my position now and where I'm at, and this may change in the future, but right now what seems to make the most sense to me at this point is that if you're new, use a script. Otherwise, you're going to sound like you don't know what you're talking about. If you've been doing this for a long time and you really do deeply understand what you're talking about, then that's great. You don't need to worry about a script, and definitely use what I'm calling a conversation map or a conversation flow. So you can map out the main chunks and stages that a conversation needs to go through in order to get from where they are to where they want to be. And you can keep your conversation on point because you've got all the content, you've got all the questions to ask and all the stories to tell to really, transition this journey. And what you want to look at is make sure that you've got all the right chunks of the conversation in the right order so that you stay on point and you get the conversation where it needs to go. Make sense? You follow? Excellent. So let's have a look at this idea of conversation flow, or conversation map. Now, I've broken it all down lots of times with lots of different entrepreneurs and business owners in all sorts of different businesses and industries. And every time it kind of works out the same way. There's typically about a dozen main chunks or stages of a successful sales conversation. And each one of these represents an emotional shift or emotional transition that happens in your prospect. They've got a realization or an emotional experience, or they've recalled a memory, or they've imagined a compelling future, or some, there's some emotional component of each stage. So it's not just to tick the box and go, right, we've done that stage, now we can move on to the next one. If the client or your customer or your prospect hasn't felt the emotional shift of that, or the emotional, the intensity, or the appropriate emotional response to that stage, you're not done with it. And it's another story, or it's another series of questions, or whatever it is. Because if we move on to the next one without experiencing the emotion of this one, then the next one's not going to work. So typically about a dozen stages. We can get into a lot of detail of this. I do a 3-day workshop just on this, so obviously we're not going to have time to cover that in this video. And what I think is going to be most valuable for you in this conversation is to have a look at, maybe a handful of the most important chunks, just to give you a bit of an idea and some really hot tips on the things that you absolutely have to cover, the most critical, and in some ways the most confusing chunks of the conversation flow. Okay? So let's have a look at a handful of the main, the essential chunks to every conversation, the essential emotional shifts that people need to feel at each of those stages, and some of the most confusing ones, so that we can really clear those up and get it clear. So the first one that's most critical and most essential to the entire conversation is the initial 7 to 12 words that you utter. It's the icebreaker, it's the conversation starter, right? So for this, really you're going to look at your personality and look at what is fascinating about you and what is intriguing about you and your product, and say something amazing about them, and really, you've got to build that connection. You've got to stand out, you've got to get attention. The whole thing about the icebreaker is you're not talking to their neocortex yet. You're not talking to their intelligent, logical, rational brain. You can't start selling yet. You're talking to the limbic brain. It's a part of the brain that, only responds to, it's the fear or flight part of the brain. And it's looking for, what is this thing that's come into my world? Is it a threat? Do I need to attack it and kill it? Is it food? Can I eat it? Is it a major threat? I need to run away from it? Is it a potential mate? Can I mate with it? Right? That's about as far as it goes. So what we need to do is help that brain to relax and calm, and it'll actually unlock and open the second part of the brain, which is all about social relevance. It's about tribe. It's about meaning, connection, and who is this? What's going on here? So the icebreaker is all about lowering the guard of the limbic brain to let you through to actually have a conversation about the status, and that's the second part, which is framing it up and establishing, your role in the conversation, their role in the conversation, and you want to build a powerful frame around the value and the purpose and the agenda and what's actually going to happen in this conversation. That's the second part. So the first part is this idea of an icebreaker or conversation starter. Now, lots of different ways to approach this, and probably one of the best resources, I'll put a link up there, it's to Sally Hogshead, and she has a program called How to Fascinate. Brilliant, brilliant process. She's an amazing woman from the States, and she said, with a name like Hogshead, growing up in high school, you get a kind of an interesting perspective on life, right? So she's done over a decade of study and research onto what does it make someone fascinating. She had this question and said, sometimes when you meet someone and you're just drawn to them and you're fascinated by them and you're what is it about this person? And then other times you meet someone and you're like, I don't want to know what it is about them. They're not fascinating at all, right? And what she's come up with is these 7 triggers to fascination. So I won't spoil the story. And what I would encourage you to do is click on the link wherever it is and you go to Sally Hogshead, you can do a test, I think it's like $30 or something. And she will map out your primary trigger, your secondary trigger, and what she calls your dormant trigger, which is the one that if you try and use that, you're not going to be fascinating at all, right? Not another word about that. Definitely go and check it out. Sally is super cool and her content, her stuff is amazing. And it is the thing I use every single time for opening up a conversation for the icebreaker. Now, as professional salespeople, what we want to do is obviously be natural and real and authentic about that. So use the one that's your primary or your secondary one. And also understand that there's a time and a place for using each of them. I've used all 7 of them, even my dormant trigger, to open a conversation when it's appropriate for the situation and for the person, and that's definitely a conversation for the deep dive session, and we can really get into a lot of detail around that in just over half a day, just on that topic alone. So go and check it out, and let's have a conversation down the track about, really which one you're going to use as your standard go-to opener, and also, what situations the others will be appropriate for. Cool? All right, so the second part is this idea of the purpose of the conversation. It's the agenda. And really what you're trying to do here is, or what you absolutely have to do here, I'm not trying anything, right? What you absolutely have to do here is frame up the entire conversation and your role in the conversation and their role in the conversation, and you're getting the status of the conversation set. You're getting your status and their status so that they know who they're talking to, right? One of my mentors says that selling is all about loving your prospect and respecting yourself, right? So this is respecting your time and not just giving it away and all that kind of stuff. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can study around that. I'm not going to get too much into it today, but there it is. And make sure that, that's so essential. So at this point, we're not closing anything. We're just opening up this conversation, and to keep that in mind. Once we've opened up the conversation, we've planned out the action steps, the next thing is to conclude the conversation. We want to do this in an eloquent way, so I'll talk about the eloquent send-off. It's a celebration, right? So it's really a celebratory demonstration of goodwill that definitively concludes this particular interaction. Right? You're not going to have this amazing conversation and go, okay, bye, and just hang up, or I got to go, or and just get up and walk out of the restaurant or the office or whatever it is. It's like, how do you wrap it up in a beautiful way? So John Abbott has a beautiful thing where he does this big congratulations, you've made this decision, and really affirms the positive decisions that they've made and the breakthroughs that they've had in their life. And it's beautiful how he does that. My favourite eloquent send-off is what I call the best thing. So I ask them, out of all this whole conversation we've had and all the stuff that we've been through and the breakthroughs that you've had and everything that we've discussed, for you, what's been the most valuable or the biggest insight or the biggest realization or just the best thing out of all of this for you, right? And then they share their best thing. I ask if you're happy if I share my best thing, and then we're done. Right? It's just a beautiful way to wrap up the conversation and leave them feeling good, and I can leave feeling good because we focused on all the high points through the conversation. So doing this well will cut out completely. If you follow all the steps, we get basically no buyer's remorse. We get no cancellations. We get no sales falling over. Firstly, because we've only allowed people to come into the program or into the sales scenario, into our clientship, who it's actually appropriate for. We can see that we can help, and they can see it as well because of the process we've been through. So, thank you so much for watching. Before we wrap up, I'd love to do one more thing, just one more bit of value for you, and that is the best thing. Of course, how I wrap up every interaction, right? The eloquent send-off. So I'll put my email on the screen. What I'd invite you to do is shoot me an email. It's patrick@resultsplatform.org, and send me your best thing. So out of watching this whole series, out of this video, out of today, out of all the stuff that we've been through, what for you has been the most insightful, the biggest realization, the biggest insight, just the best thing out of all of this for you. And if you can share your best thing with me, I will absolutely reply, I'll respond to you, and I'll send my best thing to you as well. Thank you so much, congratulations, wish you all the best. This is Patrick Woodcraft for Campaign Mastery Academy, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye for now.